Hello, and welcome back to the Crescent Shroud. This is going to be a character-focused episode, specifically with Drakain, Aelaaron, Aelaaron,
Aelaaron.
Aelaaron. I'm terrible with names.
You're good.
We're not going to start where we left off. We'll get there, but first, let's talk about where Drak came from. You were abandoned as a infant. You never knew your parents, and you grew up in a small town with a adopted dwarven father named Denny.
Yep.
This small town is named Rosebury. It is to the south of Tharin, one of the Far Kingdoms, to the east of Ancria. It's a well-balanced mixture of dwarven and human civilization. Dwarves are common there. And in Tharin proper, it's they're the majority. It's right up against the hill dwarf civilization. So there's quite a bit of trade. It's very beneficial to both sides. Not a lot of strife between them. Free and open trade. It's a pleasant place to live, if quaint, rustic, dwarven. But Rosebury is to the south, about a day's travel. It's a small town. It's not just a couple buildings, but it's no thriving metropolis. The camera zooms in to a modest house above ground, as hill dwarves tend to live. You're a teenager, and you're sitting at a table. It's rustically made. It's dwarven. You smell deep root stew simmering over the fire. This is your adopted father's home. And it's your day off. It's the weekend. You normally spend your days training to be a soldier, just like your adopted father. Your father, as you think of him. But it's boring. You want some action, a chance to prove yourself.
Let me interrupt you. You could interrupt if I needed to.
Please.
Denny is not a soldier.
The backstory you gave me said he was. What is
What?
his occupation?
Oh, did I say that?
Yep. What is his occupation then?
He's a former, like he was a warrior paladin sort of character, but he's no longer. He's more pacifist sort of.
Okay.
So Drak doesn't know that Denny doesn't want Drak to follow in those footsteps.
Gotcha. So he's retired.
Yes.
Okay. And
that's
kind of like philosophically opposed to the idea.
Not opposed to fighting when it's needed, but seeking out action, adventure,
Gotcha.
sort of stuff like that.
And would you say that's where conflict is between you and him?
Yes.
Because Drak does want to,
Yes.
prove himself.
Yep.
Because
He thinks being a warrior, a fighter, is where glory comes from as a teenager.
Mm-hmm. And you're like a guard initiate. Like you're training to be there. You're like a deputy almost. And the most action you've had is like breaking up a a barroom brawl.
Exactly.
And that's not enough. You want to prove yourself. So, like, most of the day, or most of the days on your free time, you're you're training, honing yourself. Um, you've gotten pretty good at it, but you can only get so good beating up logs and hay bales.
Mm-hmm.
And you're at the family table. Is Denny married? Does he have a spouse?
No, it's just him.
Okay, just him. He's not home yet. He often volunteers at a school. And then you hear bells ringing. It's midday. That's odd. And it's not like worship hour. The bells don't stop. What do you do?
Drak recognizes the alarm bells for what they are, especially going on for the time that they are.
Yeah.
So he grabs his sword, his small leather shield, and starts running towards the gates.
Okay, towards the gates. You get there as they fall. Uh, Orcish raiders break through. The guards that are there aren't used to this kind of coordinated attack. It's a massacre. These raiders, you don't just hear them coming through the gates in front of you. You also hear from the side and from the other side. Seems like multiple points in the town have been breached all at once. You think of your father. Do you stay and fight? Try to defend the town from here.
Yes.
You finally have a chance to
he wants to prove himself.
prove yourself. The camera fades to black. And we resume with you running towards the school in like the center of town. You've killed maybe a dozen raiders single-handedly. But as the noise of combat fades away, that thought creeps back in your head. Your father. So you're running towards the school. And you see him slumped against the front door. Bodies of orcs splayed out all in front of him. But he has suffered a mortal wound. He did not let any raiders enter the school. What do you do?
Drak drops his sword, drops his shield, sprints to his father, his adopted father. Tries to kind of cradle him, see if he's okay.
Yeah, he's not okay.
Nope.
He's still warm, but there's no life left in his eyes. What's going through your head at this moment?
Mix of emotions. He's still got the adrenaline of the battle, and so he's thinking, if only I could have been here, I could have done this too. But then, as that starts to fade, the gravity of the situation starts to creep in, that his pacifist father, this guy that hated the fact that Drak was training to be a guard and a fighter, um, just took out dozens of orcs.
More than you did.
Yeah.
Much more than you did.
Much more. To protect this school.
Yeah. And because you spent most of your time training by yourself, honing your abilities and trying to prove yourself to the guard, you don't have a lot of friends in Rosebury. You don't know your actual family, your biological family, and your only family left is now dead. There's not a lot holding you here. So, you go back to... do you take anything from... would your father have any mementos on him that you would want? Or would that be back at home?
It'd be back at the house. I don't remember if I had anything in my inventory.
You don't need to have it written down. This is your carte blanche to just name a trinket or name something that a memento.
He wants to grab his father's flute from the house, because he used to listen to him play it in the evenings. And he notices that he's got an amulet, or not an amulet so much as a necklace, pendant, something that he takes as well.
The necklace has it's made of rough iron, hand forged, possibly by himself. It's a simple necklace, and in the very center there's a circle, and from the circle hang 4 rays. So you take that off of his body. You go back to the house. You pack up your things, and you see the flute on the dresser. You take that too. You take what little coin he had, whatever counts as savings.
Not much.
And you head to Tharin. And from there, you head to the capital city, Ancria. It's not difficult to find work, especially as a guard. You're welcomed with open arms. But you're never able to shake the feeling of that day. Years pass, and being a guard hasn't really... It's not as fulfilling as you had hoped. So you leave the guard, and on recommendation from the guard captain, you enter into the knighthood. First as a squire, serving faithfully, and then as a full-fledged knight some years later. It still doesn't fill that void. You still feel like you're missing something, but it's closer. Anything you would like to add?
No, he just feels that there's something more, but just has never put his finger on it.
Gotcha. So, let's fast forward to the present day. This is the day before the auction took place. Elena has already left to pick up those invites, and the party doesn't have any pressing business. So it's your day off. And the memory of that attack is on your mind. Maybe you saw a wanted poster on a sign somewhere that reminded you of those raiders. But you're wandering the city, lost in thought. Maybe you're following an old guard route, purely from muscle memory. You pass children laughing and playing in the street. Families walking together from midday worship. And whatever the reason, you're back at the Temple District. Do you feel compelled to enter one of these buildings?
Yeah, he had gone to the Temple of the Radiant before, but didn't feel that he left with all of his, any questions answered.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to go back there.
Okay. Well, you know the way. You're already in the Temple District. Those 3 cathedrals loom in the skyline. You head to the Radiant, and you open the door. This time not ushered in, but of your own accord. It's much like you left it. There's that uncomfortably bright flame on the far end in a wrought iron brazier. There are those 7 pillars of metal with icons carved out of the center. And there are maybe a half dozen people on prayer mats in intense meditation. There is also a familiar face. A older priest with a heavy rectangular chain from one shoulder to the hip. Deep in thought. You grab a prayer mat and place it down next to this priest. What do you do?
Because he's polite, he doesn't want to interrupt if the priest is busy.
Mm-hmm.
But he keeps kind of glancing around, looking at the other people praying. Drak doesn't really know what to do in a temple. He's never had any faith before. He's only ever really believed in actions and deeds. So this is very new to him and uncomfortable. But yeah, he just kind of keeps looking around, and from time to time he glances at the man and just kind of waits patiently.
Your eyes are drawn to the flickering shadow and the flickering outline, the bright spot cast by those icons cut out of the metal. You keep looking between them, and you can't help but look at the skull bound in a chain. And you just stare at it for a while. And then the priest says, "So you're learning. You're back. Glad to see you."
Yeah, it's good to see you too, but I
That's,
don't know what I'm learning.
that's fine. Doesn't matter as long as you are. Let's talk outside. So he gets up, rolls up the prayer mat, puts it back, and leaves the temple, waiting for you. Do you follow?
Yeah, Drak gets up, does the exact same, rolls the prayer mat up, and exits.
Okay.
In a copying fashion.
Sure. You leave the temple, and there's not a whole lot of people right now in the central plaza. So like he's easy enough to pick out. He's sitting on a bench not too far away. You go, follow, and sit down next to him. He says, "I'm glad to see that you're back. What's on your mind?"
Well, honestly, I don't know why I'm back, but I just felt drawn here again.
Mm.
And I felt like we left some things unanswered the first time we met. I was wondering if you had some answers for me.
I mean, probably not, but you can ask your questions anyways. Sometimes asking them is the best way to find answers. Maybe you already have the answers and you don't know it yet.
I guess I've spent my whole life wanting to be something. And essentially, I've become that. But I still I feel like I'm missing something.
Mm.
And I can't put my finger on what's missing.
A common enough feeling.
Over the past few weeks, I've seen things. I've actually done a few things that I didn't even know were possible. And I guess that just keeps leading me back here.
So far, you've said a bunch of answers. I haven't heard a question yet. You know more than you give yourself credit for.
What do you mean? I feel like I know nothing sitting here talking to you.
It's all about perspective. I can help you with getting to know specifics, but it's it's up to you to ask the questions. I can't do that for you.
Would you happen to know? I can't remember if it was flame or what it was when we were. I don't even remember what fight it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where he felt that first spark. He wants to ask about that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Feel free to like abstract it a little bit. Um, if you don't have the specific words, uh, you're asking this priest about the time that you were able to divine smite.
Yes.
Correct. He says, "That's interesting. It's a mark of faith, and yet you claim you have none." What drives you?
Well, for most of my life, it was just to better myself. But recently, I've been driven to protect those close to me, more so than a knight would or a guard would, but to almost sacrifice for them.
Well, you just mentioned a few things. You mentioned self-improvement, which is a hallmark of no, he wouldn't say the actual name, which is a hallmark of the god of growth through hardship, one of the radiant. And then you mention responsibility and protecting others and sacrifice. Those are all hallmarks of Talus, the god of noble sacrifice, of which I am a priest. He touches the heavy chain. It seems like it was not coincidence that I met you on those steps.
I'm finding a lot more things are not coincidence anymore.
Once again, you provide an answer to a question you already know.
Where do I go from here?
You learn. That is always the first step. You can wander blindly and potentially get somewhere. But if you have knowledge of your path, it makes things a lot simpler. Once you're ready, once you know enough, I'll help you take the next step. But you need to figure out what you're supposed to do. You mentioned protecting, sacrificing. There are many types of sacrifice. Fools sacrifice. Why do you sacrifice?
Can I admit something to you? When I was... Oh,
he was just going to shrug and say, I am a priest. It is my job.
Drak's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable talking to this man. And he wants to tell him about his adopted father.
Okay.
And how he was in awe of what he was able to do when he was protecting that school and those children inside.
Mm-hmm.
But he can't ever find the strength to do it himself. But here, like I said, in these past few weeks of circumstances, is starting to feel something.
Okay. This priest says, no two paths are the same. Your father walked his own. While you should learn lessons from it, that does not mean you need to walk the same one. You mention strange things in your recent days. Do you feel more drawn to that? Or do you still wish to break up bar fights, protect common folk from bandits? It does not sound like you do.
I don't. I mean, if I saw someone getting hurt, I would feel compelled, but I just feel there's something greater happening here. You know, I've encountered beings, and some left me in awe, and some left me with such a vile, I don't even have the word to describe it.
He smiles. There you are, providing answers again. The seventh aspect of the Radiant is hope, and reliance on others, faith in ignorance, and understanding that the world is bigger than you. You just did not have the words to articulate. But you had the answer within you.
Where do I go from here? What are my next steps?
You need direction, as I've said before. And it seems like you have that answer already. You wish to protect others from beings outside their scope. And you think back, on your walk here, you passed children playing in the street. A family blissfully unaware of the smoke monster bound beneath the crescent. You think of the solar that said that it will try to protect you from a being that is watching you. That rings true. In order to keep those children laughing in the street, you think you have a good idea of your path. Am I correct?
Yep.
Cool. Well, if you are determined to walk this path, it is different than mine, but I can still help. I can assist. And he touches the chain again. And Talus will help too. Follow me. He gets up, and he does not go into the Radiant Temple. He goes like around it. There are buildings in the temple district other than the cathedrals. There are storehouses, there are office buildings, there's a whole structure to support this religious organization. He brings you to a very dusty storeroom full of scrolls. It's not a library. Libraries are well kept. Libraries have a clerk where you can rent books. This is a place where knowledge is stored. And he goes through, he like looks at a shelf, like reads labels on various boxes, various scrolls, says, oh, here. And he gets a stepladder, goes to one of the higher shelves, and pulls out a scroll box, opens it, sets it before you, and carefully unravels the scroll. This is the Oath of the Watchers. It is what you describe. It is desiring to protect those that are unaware of greater forces, to stand in between the unfathomable and safety. And like you read the Oath of the Watchers, it's very poetic. It's almost like a chant, almost like a hymn. But that you do glean the information that, but what he's saying, and it fits close enough with what you were telling him. There is no formal system in place. This is a contract between you and the Dominion. They know whether you are following it. It is not my place to judge. All you need to do is read it and accept it to yourself. I'll leave you with this. I trust you won't burn the place down. And find me once you're more experienced. I meant what I said. I will help you take the next step. But you should do this first. He leaves, closes the door behind you, and it's there are torch sconces burning with flame that give off light, but you don't feel any heat from them, and they don't give off smoke. So there's enough light in here to read. And if you don't want to solidify that oath right now, we don't have to. Or we could leave it a mystery. Or
I
you could
oh,
just
go ahead.
or you could just straight up read the oath and, like, in the privacy of this place, declare your faith.
How long is the oath?
I haven't actually written it out. I'm guessing like 6 like stanzas.
So enough you could memorize.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
kind of its intention. Yeah.
So could he read through the oath multiple times
Mm-hmm.
until it's captured in his memory?
Yeah.
Then
Absolutely.
he puts the scroll back
Mm-hmm.
where the priest took it from.
Yep.
He's very considerate. Um, Leaves and just kind of starts wandering again.
Okay. Okay.
Walking through the city, same kind of things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Children are playing, stores are selling things, people are just going about their day.
Yep.
And finally, just an aimless wandering, he stops in front of a school. And he's staring at this school door and falls to his knees and recites the oath.
Very cool. Very cool. I think that's a good place to cut it. To fade to black. If you have nope, that's it. That's it. I want to leave it on that poignant note. Yeah. Yeah, it's a, little shorter than the previous, but it's still stuff still got accomplished. Yeah. So, because this was still still an episode, we still need to ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Ideals, bonds, and flaws. And I'm gonna say that you have an additional bond now. That you will intervene, or you will attempt to intervene when extraplaners threaten normal life.
And by that, it's not just,
or however you want to phrase it, but
not all,
basically, like, I will follow the oath of the Watchers.
right?
Yeah.
But it's more and I don't remember the word that they used. Essentially, fiendish ones that are doing wrong. Because I'm traveling with two, essentially extraplanar beings.
Essentially, yeah.
I don't feel compelled to distrust them or unless they were to change.
Correct. It's about the threat. It's about the malice that you wish to protect from.
Yep.
Cool. So, ideals, bonds, and flaws.
Not a lot of protecting going on. If it's just me having flashbacks, so.
Well, flashbacks still count.
True.
So you were challenged. You decided not to go to your father. You decided to pursue glory instead of protecting loved ones. That is in conflict with one of your ideals. In direct opposition, and you suffered consequence for it. That's enough for 2 points. Right there. That
Okay.
directed the narrative in a major way.
Gotcha.
Can you think of anything else? You don't get more points, but I think it's helpful to reflect on character actions.
2 goals side by side. One was discovering his divine power, which we're creeping into now.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was, kind of discovering the reasons, the whys of that raid. And there was no more new information on that yet.
No.
That'll be a long term.
Yeah, and that's not even considered a goal yet.
Gotcha.
You can only have one goal at a time. But like it's good to have that as like a direction you want to take the character. Like currently, your long-term goal was, what is this new power? And I think you've completed that in fulfilling this oath. In at least in Drak's mind. You asked a question, what is this thing? And you got a straight answer from this person, from this priest, saying it's a mark of faith. And then he asked, what is the faith? And then through the rest of this episode, you decided on what that faith was, culminating in the oath. So
Yeah, I feel
whether it's true or not, in Drak's mind, I think that he has a good idea what the new power is and how to use it. You can still be tentative, you can still be feeling it out, but right now I think he has a hypothesis. And I think that's
essentially the bottleneck principle, where there's been a cork stuck in this bottle, and now that cork is gone, the rest of this can start flowing again. The knot's been pulled out of the hose.
Yep. So I think that completes the goal. And you can make a new one, trying to like further learn about stuff or whatever. You don't need to decide it now, but before like Wednesday, it would be nice.
Sure.
But yeah, you can iterate on this, but for now, I think Drak has an idea what the power is. So good job.
Let's do this.
Yep. Yeah, cool. And that was only a moderate goal, but you still completed it, so you got a big chunk of XP.
His flaw, where he didn't want to talk about what had happened, he felt comfortable enough with the priest to kind of explain why he was feeling the way he was.
For sure. Yeah, that would also have given you a point or two in ideals, bonds, and flaws. Good job.
Cool.
And I think that all of us know Drak a little bit better.
I think we do.
Also, we get to ask one final question. Did we learn something new or important about this world?
We learned that priests are cryptic.
That's what happens when you roleplay a high wisdom, low intelligence character. He doesn't have a lot of answers, but he knows which questions to ask.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, we just learn more about the Radiant.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
But
I think you learned a bit more about the Radiant. You learned about the seventh aspect of the Radiant, about like knowing your place in the world, hope and faith, that kind of thing.
Has he heard Talus's name before? Or does he knows that symbol, I guess that was more the symbol
Mm,
of the radiant than anything.
okay, yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah,
the next.
you definitely recognize the circle and rays as iconography of the radiant. Like specifically the prime aspect of the radiant, the sun. Um, the the skull bound in chain, and the fact that the priest had his priest mat or his prayer mat on within the line of the shadow of that one consistently, um, and the fact that he wore a heavy chain, I think, is enough information for Drak to associate the two.
Gotcha.
Um, he was not told explicitly, but like that's an easy enough question to ask and get a straight answer. And because this is like ostensibly a television show, Drak has a life outside of what's on camera. So like it's easy enough in like the time between sessions for him to just seek out that priest and be like, "Hey, stupid question, but uh is that the talus that you're talking about? The skull with the thingy? What's this chain about? Like, what's that mean?" Like, easy enough questions to ask. We don't really need to focus on it unless you specifically want to.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Although the chain may be a future step. Just saying. If you want to continue that path,
I figured there was some significance to it.
there is. But yeah, cool. Any final thoughts? Any final questions before we call this mini session done?
No, I think we're on the right path here.
Sweet. Uh, you do. Well, okay. You may level up and choose Oath of the Watchers.
Yep, already did.
And you also may prepare spells. You could paladins, uh, I believe, are like clerics and druids in that they have a overall spell list and they can prepare a certain number of spells every day. So if you want to come up with like a normal uh, spell list that you prepare every day, that's fine. And if you want to deviate from that, let me know that you've prepared a different spell in place
Gotcha.
of this one for that day.
And that only happens during a rest,
After a long rest.
long
Yeah.
rest. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, you need to like take time to prepare and like pray to your god and that sort of thing. It doesn't. I'm going to hand wave it and say it doesn't take very long. Um, Maybe just the length of you reciting the oath.
I just know that I can spend 25 gold worth of silver dust and marry people. So
Kind of useless, if I'm being honest. It's not a permanent effect, which has always made that spell kind of. It seems underwhelming. Congratulations, you two are married. The effects last for 24 hours. You can only do it once. Eh.
so it's kind of like Vegas.
I guess. I might need to house rule that to give it some more permanent like capability. But I don't know yet. Not at this point. Okay. Well, this has been a great episode, jam packed with character development and
Juicy backstory.
yeah, finally get to show that stuff off on screen, which makes it canon. No more change in that.
Gotcha.
So before we go, where can people find you?
You can find me anywhere. Patrick O'Malley's are sold. I'm hanging out in a lot of people's Twitch chats, being a dork. Yep. Other than that, that's about me.
Okay, sweet. That's it. Bye, everyone. See you all in a few hours for Riri's Astra's episode.
Can Riri talk in the mirror and have the mirror talk back, because Duckworks Riri or Duckworks Astra is awesome.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Anyways, bye.